She came home at midnight mocking me, until I told her I packed her bags. She didn't see it coming. Neither did her lawyer father who helped her, or the boyfriend who thought he'd found an easy mark. My kids knew the truth for months. I just needed proof. Now I have everything. My name is Russell Harlow. I'm 42 years old, and I own a precision machining shop in Indianapolis that specializes in aerospace components. 25 employees, contracts worth millions, and a reputation built over 15 years of getting up at 5 in the morning and not leaving until the job's done right. I'm proud of what I built, but pride doesn't keep you warm at night when your wife looks at you like you're just another piece of furniture. Marlene is 38, works in marketing for a mid-sized tech company downtown. And for the past year, she's been different. Distant. Always on her phone, always tired, always somewhere else, even when she's sitting right across from me at dinner. We have 2 kids. Connor, 17, heading to college next fall on a full ride to Purdue for engineering, and Emily, 14, sharp as a tack and too observant for her own good. I told myself it was just stress. Marlene's job had been demanding lately, or so she said. Late nights at the office, weekend conferences, emergency client calls that somehow always happened when I needed to talk to her about something important. I chalked it up to her climbing the corporate ladder, maybe going through some midlife thing. I gave her space. I trusted her. That was my first mistake. The second mistake was not paying attention when Emily stopped hugging her mother goodnight. Kids sense things adults rationalize away. Emily would kiss me on the cheek every evening before bed, but she just nodded at Marlene from across the room. When I asked her about it one night, she shrugged and said, "Mom's always busy, Dad. Why bother?" Connor wasn't much better. My son, who used to tell his mother everything, started keeping to himself. He'd talk to me about college plans, his robotics team, his part-time job at the hardware store, but around Marlene, he went quiet. I noticed but didn't push. Teenagers go through phases, right? Wrong. The third mistake was ignoring my gut when Marlene started working out obsessively, buying new clothes, changing her perfume to something I'd never smelled before. She said she wanted to feel good about herself, that she'd let herself go and needed a change. I supported her, bought her a gym membership, told her she looked great, never questioned why she suddenly cared so much about her appearance after years of sweatpants and ponytails. I was a fool. It all started unraveling 3 weeks ago when I came home early from a site inspection and found Marlene on the back porch, laughing into her phone in a way she hadn't laughed with me in years. She didn't hear me pull into the driveway. I stood in the kitchen, listening through the screen door as she whispered, I know. Just a few more months, and we won't have to sneak around anymore." My stomach dropped. She turned around and saw me standing there. Her face went pale for half a second before she plastered on a smile and said it was just her friend Jenna from work, talking about some inside joke. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her. But something in her eyes told me she was lying. That's when I stopped ignoring the warning signs and started paying attention. Emily came to me on a Tuesday night. I was in the garage, running diagnostics on a prototype valve assembly for Boeing, when I heard the side door open. She stood there in her pajamas, holding her phone, looking like she'd been crying. "Dad, we need to talk." I set down my tools and pulled up a stool for her. Emily sat down, took a deep breath, and said the words that changed everything. "Mom's cheating on you." My first instinct was denial. My 14-year-old daughter didn't know what she was talking about. She was misinterpreting something. But then she unlocked her phone and showed me a folder containing 47 audio recordings. "I've been recording her phone calls for 3 months," Emily said quietly, her voice shaking. "I know I shouldn't have, but something felt wrong, and I wanted to protect you." I listened to the first recording. Marlene's voice, bright and flirtatious in a way I hadn't heard directed at me in years, talking to someone named Chad. They discussed hotels, weekend trips, how much longer they'd have to play it safe before she could leave me. The second recording was worse. Marlene laughing about how clueless I was, how I'd never suspect anything because I was too busy with my little machine shop to notice what was happening under my own roof. The third recording made me physically ill. She was talking about the $85,000 I'd saved for Connor's college expenses, the money I'd been setting aside since he was born. She told Chad it would make a perfect investment in his consulting business once the divorce was finalized. Emily watched me process all of this, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry, Dad. I wanted to tell you sooner, but I was scared. Connor knows too." He saw Mom with that guy at the mall 6 months ago, but he didn't know how to tell you either. 6 months. My kids have been carrying this burden for 6 months while I walked around oblivious. I pulled Emily into a hug and told her none of this was her fault. Then I asked her to send me all the recordings. She did, and I transferred them to a secure drive that night. Connor came downstairs around midnight and found me sitting at the kitchen table, staring at my laptop. He looked exhausted, guilty, defeated. "Emily told you," he said. It wasn't a question. I nodded. My son sat down across from me and started talking. He told me about seeing Marlene at the Castleton Square Mall last October, walking hand in hand with a man he didn't recognize. He confronted her about it later, and she'd spun some story about it being a colleague helping her pick out a gift for me. Connor knew it was a lie, but he didn't want to destroy our family based on a hunch. "I should have told you," Connor said, his voice breaking. "I was a coward." "No," I told him firmly. "You were a kid trying to make sense of something that shouldn't have been your responsibility. This is on her, not you." We sat there for a long time, father and son, both realizing that our family, as we knew it, was already gone. We just hadn't acknowledged it yet. The next morning, I made 2 phone calls. The first was to my lawyer, a sharp guy named Robert Callahan, who'd handled the contracts when I bought out my former business partner. The second was to a private investigator a client had recommended years ago, a former cop named Patricia Drake. I was done being blind. It was time to see exactly what Marlene had been hiding. Patricia Drake was everything I needed in an investigator. No nonsense, thorough, and fast. Within 48 hours, she confirmed what Emily's recordings had already told me. Chad Stevens, 40 years old, divorced twice, ran a so-called consulting firm that was barely legitimate, and had a history of targeting married women with money. Patricia handed me a folder containing surveillance photos. Marlene and Chad at restaurants I couldn't afford on date nights we never had anymore. Them checking into the Marriott downtown. Them walking through Broad Ripple, holding hands like teenagers. "There's more," Patricia said, sliding another document across her desk. "Your wife took out a home equity line of credit 3 months ago. $240,000 against your house. She forged your signature on the paperwork." My hands went numb. "That's impossible. I never signed anything." "I know. I've already contacted the bank and filed a fraud report. They're investigating, but this is going to get messy. She used that money to buy Chad a car and put a down payment on a condo in his name." I sat there processing the fact that my wife hadn't just betrayed me emotionally. She'd stolen $250,000 and put my business assets at risk. Patricia leaned forward. "Russell, I need you to understand something. This woman isn't just having an affair. She's systematically planning to destroy you financially while building a life with someone else. You need to act fast." I went home that night and waited. Marlene had texted earlier, saying she'd be home late from a client dinner. I knew exactly where she was. Patricia had already confirmed she was at a hotel bar with Chad. I packed her belongings methodically. Clothes, toiletries, shoes, everything that was hers went into 3 large duffel bags. I set them by the front door and sat down on the couch with a cup of coffee, waiting. She came home at midnight. I heard her car pull into the driveway, heard her heels clicking on the walkway, heard her fumbling with her keys. The door opened, and she walked in smelling like wine and expensive cologne that wasn't mine. She saw me sitting there and froze for half a second. Then she smiled, that same fake smile she'd been giving me for months. "Why are you still up?" Marlene asked, her voice dripping with condescension, waiting up for me like some worried parent. I didn't respond, just watched her. She noticed the bags by the door and laughed. Actually laughed. "What's this? You packed for a trip and forgot to tell me." "Those are yours," I said calmly. "You left at 6 o'clock for a client dinner. You came back at midnight smelling like someone else. So tell me, Marlene, do I look like a fool to you, or just a backup plan?" Her smile faltered. "You're being ridiculous. I told you. It was a client dinner that ran late." I pulled out my phone and played one of Emily's recordings. Marlene's voice filled the room, laughing about how clueless I was, how easy it was to manipulate me. The color drained from her face. "I know about Chad," I continued, my voice steady and cold. "I know about the hotels, the trips, the lies. I know about the $240,000 you stole from our home equity. And I know you plan to take Connor's college fund." Marlene's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. "Russell, I can explain." "No." I cut her off. "You can't. Your bags are packed. You're leaving. Tonight. She stared at me like I'd just spoken a foreign language. You wouldn't dare. I already did. Marlene didn't leave quietly. She screamed, threatened, cried, tried every manipulation tactic she'd probably used successfully for years. None of it worked. I'd already changed the locks earlier that day. Her key wouldn't work by morning. Connor and Emily came downstairs, woken by the commotion. They stood together on the staircase, watching their mother unravel. Tell them. Marlene shrieked at me, pointing at the kids. Tell them you're throwing me out of my own house. Tell them yourself, I said quietly. Tell them about Chad. Tell them about the money you stole. Tell them how you plan to use Connor's college fund to invest in your boyfriend's fake business. Emily spoke up, her voice cutting through Marlene's hysterics. We already know, Mom. I've been recording your phone calls for 3 months. Marlene's face went white. She looked at Emily, then at Connor, then back at me. You turned my own children against me. Connor stepped forward, his jaw set. No, Mom. You did that yourself when you chose him over us. I'd never been more proud of my son than in that moment. Marlene grabbed her bags and stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. We heard her car peel out of the driveway, tires screeching against asphalt. The house fell silent. Emily came down and hugged me. Connor joined us. We stood there in the entryway, the three of us, a family that was broken, but somehow felt stronger than it had in months. The next morning, I met with Robert Callahan, my lawyer. I brought everything. The recordings, Patricia's surveillance photos, the forged loan documents, bank statements showing the fraudulent transfers. Robert reviewed it all and let out a low whistle. Russell, this is one of the worst cases of marital fraud I've seen in 20 years. She's going to face criminal charges for the forgery alone. I want full custody of the kids, I told him, and I want every penny she stole returned. You'll get it, Robert assured me. With this evidence, she doesn't have a leg to stand on. He paused, studying me. There's something else you should know. I did some digging into Chad Stevens. He's not just a bad boyfriend. He's a con artist with outstanding warrants in 2 states for financial fraud. Your wife wasn't just cheating. She was being used by someone who does this professionally. The irony wasn't lost on me. Marlene had thought she was trading up, leaving her boring husband for an exciting man who made her feel alive. Instead, she'd hooked up with a predator who saw her as nothing more than a meal ticket. 2 days later, I got a call from the bank's fraud department. They traced the forged documents back to Marlene's father, a lawyer named Thomas Reed. He'd helped her falsify the paperwork, thinking he was helping his daughter secure assets before divorce. Now he was facing disbarment and potential jail time. Marlene's entire family had conspired against me, and one by one, they were all facing consequences. Patricia Drake called me that afternoon with more news. Chad Stevens just got arrested. Turns out he's wanted in Ohio and Kentucky for running investment scams. The FBI picked him up this morning. Everything was falling apart for them, and I felt absolutely nothing. Marlene didn't go quietly. She moved in with her parents, and within 24 hours, I started receiving threatening texts from her father, Thomas Reed. He was a lawyer, used to intimidating people, and he thought he could bully me into backing down. You're making a huge mistake, Russell. Drop this nonsense, or I'll bury you in court. I forwarded every message to Robert Callahan, who found them hilarious. He's panicking, Robert told me over the phone. The bank's fraud investigation has him sweating bullets. He knows he's facing disbarment for helping Marlene forge those documents. 3 days after I kicked Marlene out, Patricia Drake called with an update. Chad Stevens made bail, but here's the interesting part. He immediately tried to contact Marlene. She refused his calls. Looks like she's finally realizing he was using her. Good, I said flatly. There's more. I followed up on those recordings your daughter made. In one of them, Marlene discusses trying to get you fired from your own company. She was going to file false harassment claims with your aerospace clients, create enough doubt that they'd pull their contracts. My blood ran cold. My business wasn't just my livelihood. It was my reputation, built over 15 years of precision work and reliability. She'd been willing to destroy all of that out of spite. I've already reached out to your major clients, Patricia continued. Gave them a heads up about potential false allegations. They appreciated the transparency. Boeing's procurement officer said, and I quote, Russell Harlow has more integrity in his little finger than most people have in their entire body. That meant more to me than Marlene could ever understand. Connor came home from his part-time job that evening and found me in the kitchen, making dinner for the three of us. It was something I started doing more often since Marlene left. Simple meals, nothing fancy, but we ate together as a family. "Dad, I got my acceptance letter from Purdue today," Connor said, sliding the envelope across the counter. "Full scholarship for mechanical engineering. They're even covering room and board." I pulled him into a hug. "I'm so proud of you, son." Emily looked up from her homework. "Does this mean Mom can't steal the college money now?" "She never could," I assured her. "The account was in my name only. She just thought she'd be able to access it during the divorce. Robert already froze all joint assets." We sat down to eat, and for the first time in months, dinner felt normal. We talked about Connor's plans for college, Emily's upcoming volleyball tournament, my new contract with a defense contractor. Nobody mentioned Marlene. Later that night, Rebecca Cole knocked on my door. My neighbor had been watching the situation unfold from across the street, and she'd offered to help with the legal paperwork pro bono when she heard what Marlene had done. "I wanted to give you an update," Rebecca said, stepping into my living room. "The fraud investigation moved fast. The bank confirmed your signature was forged. They're pressing criminal charges against both Marlene and her father." I nodded slowly. "What does that mean for me?" "It means the debt is void. You're not responsible for that $240,000. The bank is going after the Reeds for it, and they'll likely seize assets to recover the funds. Your house is safe." The relief that washed over me was physical. I've been carrying the weight of that fraudulent debt for days, wondering how I'd manage to pay it back while keeping my business afloat. Rebecca hesitated, then added, "There's something else. I've been your neighbor for 2 years now, Russell. I watch you leave for work every morning at 5 a.m. Come home and help your kids with homework, maintain your house, be a good father. And I've watched Marlene treat all of that like it meant nothing." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "What I'm trying to say is, you deserve better than what she gave you. Don't let this make you forget that." I looked at Rebecca, really looked at her for the first time. She was intelligent, kind, and had just spent hours helping me navigate legal documents without asking for anything in return. "Thank you," I said quietly, "for everything." She smiled. "That's what neighbors are for." Marlene's mother, Patricia Reed, called me a week later. Unlike her husband's threatening messages, her voice was quiet, almost broken. "Russell, I need to talk to you about something. Can we meet somewhere private?" I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop downtown, curious about what she wanted. Patricia showed up looking like she'd aged 10 years in the past week. She sat across from me, ordered nothing, and got straight to the point. "I didn't know what Thomas and Marlene were planning," she began. "I knew about the affair, and I should have told you, but I didn't know about the fraud until the bank contacted us." I said nothing, waiting. Patricia pulled out an envelope and slid it across the table. "These are documents I found in Thomas's office. He wasn't just helping Marlene forge loan papers. He was advising her on how to hide assets, how to manipulate custody evaluations, how to destroy you financially and take the children." I opened the envelope. Inside were legal strategies, character assassination plans, even a draft motion to paint me as an unstable, potentially dangerous parent. They'd planned to use my work hours against me, claim I was neglectful, suggest my precision machining business exposed the children to industrial hazards. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked. "Because it's wrong," Patricia said, tears forming in her eyes. "I raised my daughter better than this. Or at least I thought I did. Thomas enabled her worst impulses, and now they're both facing criminal charges. Our family is destroyed, and it's all because Marlene couldn't appreciate what she had." She looked at me with genuine remorse. "You were a good husband, Russell. You worked hard, provided for your family, loved your children. Marlene threw that away for a con artist who saw her as nothing more than an ATM with legs." I didn't know what to say. This woman had watched her daughter destroy our marriage and said nothing, but at least she had the courage to face me now. "Connor and Emily are good kids," Patricia continued. "They shouldn't lose their grandmother because their mother made terrible choices. I'm asking if I can still be part of their lives." I considered this carefully. Emily had always been close to her grandmother. Connor less so, but he respected her. "That's up to them," I finally said. "If they want to maintain a relationship with you, I won't stand in the way. But Thomas is done. He helped orchestrate an attack on our family, and I won't expose my children to that." Patricia nodded, accepting the boundary. That's fair. Thomas and I are separating. I can't stay married to a man who would help our daughter commit fraud. She stood to leave, then turned back. One more thing. Marlene is pregnant. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? She's 8 weeks along. She claims it's yours, but the timeline doesn't add up based on when you two were last together. I think it's Chad's, and she's going to try to use it as leverage to get you to drop the divorce proceedings. My mind raced. If Marlene was pregnant with Chad's child while still legally married to me, she could try to claim I was the father, manipulate custody arrangements, complicate everything. Robert needs to know about this immediately, I said, already pulling out my phone. Patricia nodded. I figured you'd say that. I'll testify if needed. I'm done protecting her lies. As she walked away, I sat in a coffee shop processing this new development. Marlene wasn't just fighting to save herself anymore. She was fighting for a future with a child that might belong to a federal fugitive. This was far from over. Marlene's parents were celebrating their 40th wedding anniversary with a large party at the country club. It was supposed to be a celebration of their enduring marriage, ironically scheduled 3 weeks after I kicked their daughter out of my house. Patricia Reed called me personally to extend an invitation. I know it's awkward, Russell, but Thomas doesn't know I'm inviting you. The kids should be there for their grandparents' milestone, and you're still their father. I accepted, but not for the reason she thought. The party was lavish, over 100 guests in the ballroom, champagne flowing, a live band playing standards from the 60s. Connor and Emily came with me, both dressed nicely, both looking uncomfortable. Marlene was there with her father, acting like the dutiful daughter, smiling for photos and pretending everything was fine. She saw me walk in, and her face went white. Thomas Reed started toward me, probably planning to throw me out, but Patricia intercepted him with a hand on his arm and a whispered warning I couldn't hear. I wasn't there to cause a scene. I was there to deliver truth. Robert Callahan had prepared a document, perfectly legal, perfectly devastating. It was a detailed accounting of Marlene's fraud, her affair, the forged loan documents, her father's involvement, and the criminal charges they were both facing. All facts, all provable, all public record. When Patricia stood to make a toast of 40 years of marriage, I waited until she finished. Then I stood, holding a microphone the band director handed me after I'd explained what I needed. I'd like to say a few words. I began, my voice calm and steady. The room went silent. Marlene was shaking her head, mouthing no, at me from across the room. Thomas looked ready to explode, but Patricia met my eyes and gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. She knew what was coming and wasn't going to stop it. 40 years of marriage is an incredible achievement, I continued. It takes honesty, trust, and commitment. Values that I thought my own marriage was built on, until I discovered my wife had been lying to me for over a year. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Marlene stood up, her face red with fury and embarrassment. I'm not here to air dirty laundry or seek revenge, I said, looking directly at her. I'm here because these people deserve to know the truth about the family they're celebrating tonight. I gestured to Connor and Emily, standing by my side. These two incredible kids found out about their mother's affair months before I did. They carried that burden in silence, trying to protect me. Emily recorded phone conversations where Marlene discussed stealing the college fund I'd saved for Connor. Connor witnessed his mother with her boyfriend at the mall and was told a lie about it. The room was dead silent now. You could hear people breathing. Thomas Reed, the man you're honoring tonight as a devoted husband and father, helped his daughter forge my signature on loan documents to steal $240,000 from our home equity. He's currently under investigation for fraud and facing disbarment. Thomas lunged forward, but two of his law partners grabbed him and held him back. I pulled out a folder and held it up. This contains bank records, surveillance photos, phone recordings, and legal documents proving everything I just said. It's all public record. Anyone who wants copies can contact my attorney, Robert Callahan. Marlene was crying now, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. Her friends were staring at her in shock and disgust. Her professional colleagues were whispering among themselves, probably already calculating how this would affect their association with the Reed family. I don't tell you this to hurt anyone, I concluded. I tell you this because lies thrive in darkness, and I'm done living in the dark. My children deserve better. I deserve better. And honestly, Marlene deserved better than a father who taught her that fraud and betrayal were acceptable tools to get what she wanted. I set down a microphone and walked out, Connor and Emily following close behind. We didn't stay for cake. The fallout from the anniversary party was immediate and catastrophic for the Reeds. Thomas lost 3 major clients the next day. Marlene was asked to take a leave of absence from her marketing job, pending an internal investigation. Their social circle fragmented, with some people supporting them and others cutting ties completely. I didn't gloat. I just focused on moving forward. Rebecca Cole had become a regular presence in my life. She'd stop by with coffee in the mornings before work, help Emily with her math homework in the evenings, and spent one memorable Saturday helping Connor and me replace the deck boards on the back porch. "You didn't have to help with this," I told her as we worked side by side, measuring and cutting lumber. Rebecca smiled, wiping sawdust from her face. "I wanted to. Besides, you're doing me a favor too. My own dad never taught me this stuff. I like learning." We worked in comfortable silence for a while, and I found myself noticing small things about her. The way she concentrated when she measured twice before cutting. Her laugh when Connor told bad carpentry jokes. The easy way she fit into our small family dynamic. But then Natalie Dawson came back into my life, and everything got complicated. Natalie and I had worked together 8 years ago at a different manufacturing company before I started my own shop. We'd had a connection back then, something neither of us acted on because we were both in relationships. She'd moved to Colorado, gotten married, gotten divorced, and now she was back in Indianapolis working as a consultant for one of my aerospace clients. We ran into each other at a supplier meeting, and it was like no time had passed at all. "Russell Harlow," Natalie said, her face lighting up. "I heard you started your own company. That's fantastic." We grabbed coffee after the meeting, which turned into dinner, which turned into long phone conversations about everything and nothing. Natalie understood the technical aspects of my work in a way Rebecca didn't. She could talk about titanium alloys and CNC programming and quality assurance protocols. But more than that, she remembered who I was before Marlene, before the marriage fell apart, when I was still optimistic about the future. "You haven't changed," Natalie told me over dinner one night. "You're still the guy who cares more about doing good work than making easy money. Is that a compliment?" She laughed. "It's the highest compliment I know how to give." I was falling for both of them, in completely different ways. Rebecca represented stability, domesticity, a life integrated with my children and my neighborhood. Natalie represented adventure, intellectual partnership, a connection to the person I used to be before responsibilities weighed me down. Emily noticed, of course. She cornered me in the kitchen one night after Rebecca had left. "You like her?" Emily stated. It wasn't a question. "Rebecca's a good friend." "Dad, I'm 14, not stupid. You look at her the way you used to look at Mom before everything went bad." Emily paused. "But you look at Natalie differently. Like she reminds you of something you lost." My daughter was too perceptive for her own good. "I don't know what I'm doing," I admitted. "It's too soon. I'm still married technically. I shouldn't be thinking about any of this." Emily hugged me. "You're allowed to be happy, Dad. After everything Mom put you through, you deserve to find someone who actually appreciates you. What if I don't know who the right person is? Then take your time figuring it out. Both of them seem nice. Just don't rush into anything because you're trying to fill a hole Mom left." Wise words from a 14-year-old. Connor had his own opinion. "Rebecca's solid, Dad. She's here. She's stable. She cares about us. Natalie's cool, but she just got back to town. What happens if she gets another job offer somewhere else?" Both kids raised valid points, but neither could tell me what my heart wanted because I didn't know myself. The divorce proceedings moved faster than Robert Callahan had predicted. With the mountain of evidence against Marlene, her attorney advised her to accept a settlement rather than face a judge who'd seen the fraud documentation. I got full custody of Connor and Emily. Marlene received supervised visitation rights, 2 hours every other Saturday, pending completion of court-ordered therapy. She had to repay the $240,000 through a structure payment plan that would take her 15 years to complete. The college fund remained untouched and secured in a trust only I could access. Thomas Reed was disbarred 3 months after the anniversary party. He and Patricia separated officially, with Patricia moving into a small condo downtown and trying to rebuild her relationship with her grandchildren. Chad Stevens took a plea deal on the federal charges. 5 years in prison for wire fraud and identity theft across multiple states. Marlene's pregnancy ended in a miscarriage at 12 weeks, and I felt nothing but relief for a child who wouldn't be born into that chaos. My business thrived. The Boeing contract expanded, and I hired 5 new employees to handle the increased workload. Connor left for Purdue in August, calling home twice a week to check on me and Emily. My son was flourishing, finally free from the tension that had poisoned our house for so long. Emily started seeing a therapist, not because she was broken, but because she was smart enough to process her trauma with professional help. She joined the debate team at school and discovered she had a talent for arguing cases with logic and evidence. I told her she'd make a fantastic lawyer someday. Rebecca and Natalie both remained in my life, and I still couldn't choose between them. Rebecca had become part of our daily routine. She helped Emily with college prep, joined us for Sunday dinners, and spent one memorable weekend teaching me how to cook something more complicated than grilled cheese. She fit seamlessly into the life I was building, stable and present and kind. Natalie challenged me in ways I'd forgotten I needed. She pushed me to expand the business, introduced me to contacts at Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman, and reminded me that I was more than just a divorced father trying to survive. I was a skilled engineer with ambition and potential. "You're going to have to choose eventually," Connor told me during one of our phone calls. "I know, but not today, right?" "Right. Not today." Both women knew about each other and had apparently made peace with the situation. Rebecca told me she wasn't going anywhere and I could take all the time I needed. Natalie said she'd waited 8 years for me to be single. She could wait a little longer for me to figure out what I wanted. I was the luckiest, indecisive man alive. Patricia Reed invited Emily and me to lunch one Saturday. We met at a quiet cafe, and she looked healthier than she had in months. "I wanted to thank you," Patricia said to me, "for letting me stay in their lives despite everything my family did. You chose integrity over loyalty to your daughter's lies," I replied. "That took courage. Thomas and I are getting divorced. I filed last week." She sipped her tea. I realized I'd spent 40 years with a man who valued winning over honesty. I don't want to spend the rest of my life that way. Emily reached across the table and took her grandmother's hand. "Good for you, Grandma." Patricia smiled through her tears. "You know what I've learned, Russell? It's never too late to choose the person you want to be, even if it means walking away from the person you've been." I thought about that as I drove home, about choices and second chances and the courage it takes to start over. 10 months after I kicked Marlene out, I stood in my backyard watching Emily practice her debate arguments for an upcoming tournament. She was fierce, confident, and nothing like the quiet girl who'd carried her mother's secrets in silence. Connor came home for Thanksgiving break, bringing his girlfriend from Purdue, a mechanical engineering major named Sarah, who could talk CNC programming and structural analysis with the best of them. They were planning to spend Christmas with her family in Michigan, and I told him I was proud of how independent he'd become. The business had doubled its revenue. I'd moved into a larger facility and hired 12 new employees. We'd just landed a contract with SpaceX that would keep us busy for the next 3 years. Rebecca and Natalie both came to Thanksgiving dinner, along with Patricia, Jason, and Hannah from Clayton's family next door, and a few close friends. It was chaotic and loud and perfect. After dinner, I found myself on the back porch with both women, watching the sunset and drinking coffee. "So," Natalie began, her tone teasing, "have you made a decision yet?" Rebecca laughed. "Natalie, you can't just ask him like that." "Why not? We're all adults here." I looked at both of them, these two incredible women who'd shown me kindness when I needed it most. And I realized something important. "I don't think I can choose," I admitted. "Not because I don't care about both of you, but because I think I need more time to figure out who I am outside of being Marlene's husband or the kid's father or the business owner." Rebecca nodded slowly. "That's fair." Natalie grinned. "So we're in a holding pattern. If you're both willing to wait while I figure out what I actually want from life." They exchanged glances, some silent communication I couldn't read. "I can wait," Rebecca said. "Me too," Natalie agreed. "But we're not waiting forever, Russell Harlow. I wouldn't expect you to." Later that night, after everyone had gone home and Emily was asleep, I sat in my workshop running my hand over the smooth surface of a titanium component I'd machined that afternoon. Perfect tolerances, exact specifications, no margin for error. I'd spent my marriage trying to be perfect, trying to meet Marlene's ever-changing expectations, trying to fix problems that existed only in her dissatisfaction. I'd failed because the game was rigged from the start. Now I was building something real. A business based on precision and integrity. A relationship with my kids based on honesty and trust. Friendships with people who value me for who I was, not what I could provide. And maybe, eventually, love with someone who saw me as a partner rather than a project. I didn't know if that person would be Rebecca or Natalie or someone I hadn't met yet. But for the first time in years, I was okay with not knowing. I was okay with just being Russell Harlow, 42 years old, owner of a precision machining shop, father to 2 incredible kids, and a man who'd survived betrayal and come out stronger on the other side. I looked up at the night sky through the workshop window and smiled. Thank God for sending good people into my life after so many years with someone who never deserved me. The future was uncertain, but it was mine, and that was enough.